Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I have a super interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Benchmade 710, in particular the newest, limited edition version. This is the 710-25 in M390. We have the black aluminum and the bronze pivot collars and the bronze clip. Very cool, very shiny. Let me start off this review by saying that the price tag on this knife, and by the way, Benchmade did send this to me for free. Thank you so much to Benchmade for doing that. The price tag on this knife is absolutely outrageous. It makes no sense whatsoever. I've seen a bunch of Benchmade knives here lately where I'm like, I don't know how they got there, right? The 710 is the most outrageous, one of the most outrageously priced Benchmade knives. It makes no sense whatsoever. And I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that, because that is actually how I feel. By the way, there are affiliate links for this knife down in the description. If you buy this knife, I'll get a commission. But let me stop you before you click on those affiliate links that benefit me directly and say, this is too much money. You have to really, really want this knife to pay that much for it. So please understand that is my authentic position. I appreciate Benchmade always letting me say exactly what I think and not trying to tell me what to say about the stuff that they send me. That's very cool of them. So yeah, overpriced, insane. But I do love this design. I have always loved this design. I was part of my buddy's wedding years ago, and I got him, right about the time that they discontinued the D2 version. I bought it for $120, and I was like, man, that's a lot of money for a pocket knife, right? Well, that was a long time ago. Yeah, it was just G10 and D2, but $120. The price has gone way up. $450 for this bad boy now. Wow, that's a lot of money. So I'm going to let you know, as being a person who has a bias towards this design, I do love this design. It's a legacy knife through Benchmade. It's kind of their Sebenza, so to speak, right? Really, really love the design, but we have to take into consideration the price tag. And I've got some suggestions on how to get people to pay that much money for a pocket knife, but it's probably not something that it would happen. But I'll give you guys my thoughts. Thanks so much to Benchmade for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Like I said, there are links for this guy down in the description. It should be available at the time that you're watching this. Make sure your notifications are turned on for the Metal Complex YouTube channel. That way you don't miss my weekend live stream giveaways. Overall length is coming in at 7.85 inches overall. It really has kind of a Shirogorov length and blade to handle ratio. Yeah, almost exactly. We have 3.85 inches of blade. Gosh, it's a lot bigger than I ever realized. 3.75 inches of cutting edge. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. It's actually longer than both the 8010 and my own Excalibur. It's crazy. It's very compact in the pocket. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. It's still bigger. And then finally, we'll put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. And let's put it up against an actual Benchmade, the actual Benchmade bug out, since we're looking at the bug out today. There you go. How's the action? Well, you got to give it to Benchmade. Their washer action is so good. If everybody could get, now they don't always, it's not always perfectly consistent. If everybody could make their washer action as good as Benchmade, bearings up to a certain price, I mean, like at a certain price, like some, custom makers and like ultra high-end Chinese production knives, like the Chinese mid-techs and stuff, like the action does get better, right? Some of the multi-row bearing stuff, but a lot of this stuff right around the $200 territory, if everybody could do washers like Benchmade does, there'd be no reason for bearings. Because the washers are superior at keeping debris and dirt and stuff out of the pivot, and they're also self-lubricating. So the only thing that makes them, if you could put it that way, inferior to bearings is typically you're not going to get nearly as good action. Man, Benchmade does a good job with washers. It's insane. They are so smooth. On top of that, while the Omega springs in Benchmade knives are typically not super high tension, this one doesn't necessarily have high tension Omega springs. What I really like is these tabs, these tapered tabs that you use to pull down versus what we usually see. I know this is a Hogue, but we usually see something like this. Where's the Benchmade that I just had? There we go. That's what we typically see through Benchmade. These are fine. These are better. It does feel higher quality. This does feel all the way around like a Benchmade knife that has extra effort every step of the way. The way that they've constructed it overall, though, I mean, it feels that way, but ultimately it does not equate. It still does not equate to the price. It's not. I'm not giving it excuses. I'm just letting you know if you decide to buy this, you're going to go, yeah, this does feel like something a little bit better. Still outrageously priced, but a little bit better, right? Thumb stud is in just the right place. The 710 has always had like a really give you a reverse flick with the axis lock and the studs. I don't understand why Benchmade, you guys apparently have a patent on your crossbar lock that has a coil spring. How do I know that? Because I wanted to implement that locking system in my own Excalibur. I said, Sergio, remember that locking system that Benchmade had on the Anthem? It's a crossbar lock with a coil spring. Way more reliable than Omega springs. That would be super cool, and they already implemented it in a frame lock, right? Now, the axis lock itself, the patent is up, so we should be able to use this. Apparently, that's a separate patent entirely, and I'm not interested in getting into trouble in that department. So we said, nope, we'll do something else. But I love that locking system, right? I don't necessarily need to be able to use it on the knife I designed. I would like to see Benchmade implement it, since apparently they have a patent, on their own knives, which utilize almost exclusively the axis lock, which is used by everyone. Why? Oh my gosh, that Anthem lock, I just don't, why? Use it. I would have died to have that on the 710. Please, Benchmade, do something with that. Come on. Microtech's killing it with their ram lock, which isn't a crossbar lock, but it's essentially the same idea. 2 tabs on the side and a coil spring. Way more reliable in terms of the spring, over time. I think Benchmade's authentic Omega springs are actually pretty good. Somebody pointed out to me with the number of clones and counterfeits that we have flooding the market, especially in terms of Benchmade. A lot of times where those companies, one of the areas where they cut corners is the quality of the Omega springs. And it's actually fairly common for people to buy a counterfeit knife and then buy an authentic knife from an authorized retailer, and then once it arrives to swap out the authentic one with the counterfeit and send it back and say, oh, it doesn't work very well or whatever. They're returning it, right? And then the aesthetic of it, not the quality, but the aesthetic of it is so good, I'm talking about these cheap $25, $30 versions, that they just accept the return, and then somebody else ends up with the knife because they reshelve it, and then they use it for a bit, and then the Omega spring breaks. So then you hear, oh, the Benchmade Omega springs suck. In reality, I think a lot more of those Omega spring failures occur on clones and counterfeits without people even realizing. Because from what I understand, a lot of these, like these legitimate companies who utilize Omega springs, like we're talking about Hogue and Benchmade and some other companies, they actually take quite a bit of care to make sure that these springs are made out of super high quality materials that are supposed to last a long time. I'm not saying that if your Omega spring breaks on day one, that yours is a counterfeit. I'm saying this occurs a lot more than people realize, and then Benchmade takes the brunt of it because people are usually already kind of irritated with them for their pricing. So this is something that's only recently, been brought to my attention, but it does make sense when you think about all the garbage that's on the TikTok shop. So don't buy that stuff. Don't buy counterfeits. That's not good. There's too many choices in the budget knife world for anybody to feel like they are obligated to make that choice. But anyways, I digress. The action on it, I'm really happy with. Definitely. Let's do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's maybe slightly thicker. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This is actually a super easy knife to carry. It's like it's a big knife, but I mean, look at this. It's not really hardly any bigger than the PM2. It's not even as tall, right? It's always been a nice, compact, like essentially XL size folding knife. It's quite a bit bigger than the Para 3 though. Let's weigh it. What are we looking at for materials? Aluminum, nicely milled aluminum, but aluminum. Steel liners, a lot. I mean, we could have nested those. I think that would have been cool. And we could have contoured the aluminum. We could have at least done that, right? Don't get me started. Listen, I'm getting there, okay? I'm getting there. I am not the type of reviewer that demands, I demand you get your prices lower. I don't do that because that's pointless. It's pointless. How's that worked for us over the last 2 decades? Community? It hasn't. It doesn't work. Now, what I like to do as a reviewer is say, if you're going to charge us that much, you better bring it. You better bring the extra. Put the sauce on it, right? Because they have room to do that. They're not going to bring their prices down. I mean, okay, sometimes there's sales and things like that. Sometimes certain models just won't go after like years, and then they finally, the retailers do the clearance or whatever. Fine. But the companies aren't going to bring their prices back. It's not going to happen. So, but I can make suggestions on what should be implemented in order to justify the price tag. Whether or not they listen to me, which they probably won't, is a different story. But that's kind of my perspective on that. You can agree with me or disagree with me. But anyways, aluminum, M390, steel liners and steel hardware and all that. It weighs 4.9 ounces, a little heavier than I thought, right? Now, you know what could have helped with the weight? Nesting the liners. Less material and you sink it into the aluminum. We probably could have brought that down to maybe 4 ounces, 4.2. And then we end up with a 3.85 inch blade, which not only helps with the, just the overall weight in the pocket, but your balance would be much closer to the pivot. As it sits, it's about right here. Is that really that big of a deal? No, I don't think so. Might be too heavy for some people, but not for everybody. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. You know what? I'm not even going to get it out. These are all T6 because Benchmade loves T6. They're very romantically involved with T6 knives. They've been very dedicated over the years. So for the, sorry, that's my little one upstairs banging the cabinets. She's fine. She's not alone. It's just with my mom. She's home because yesterday she had a fever, and you can't take them to daycare the next day if they have a fever. So since I work here, I'm here. So fortunately, my mom's nice enough to help out in situations like that. This is a T10, just making sure there's not a lot of play there. T10 pivot, always love that. Really wish they'd give us T8 or better on the scale screws there. Why we have screws in the stop pin, I don't know. They've always done that. Doesn't make any sense to me. It really can just float in there. It can just stick into the holes and be fine. I don't know why we have to screw those in there. Taking this apart and dealing with the axis lock is going to be a little bit of an irritating issue for those of you who have never done it before. It's far from impossible, though. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. The only other thing we need to do is to measure the blade stock thickness. So here we go. Blade stock thickness is 111 thousandths. Cool. Okay, meat and potatoes time. It's essentially the same profile with a little bit, I think maybe they've done some extra work in the beveling and things like that. I do like the texturing on the aluminum, the milling on the aluminum. I think it looks really, really nice. I love the pivot collar. I love the domed off show side pivot head. I love the bronze pocket clip. It's going to wear away after a bit, but that's fine. I love that. Again, I think where it looks a little cheap is the exposed liners. Like, what are we doing? It's 2025. Benchmade, at bare minimum, these liners should have been nested. And you know what? If you really needed to, just do a freaking cartridge liner, but nest it into the aluminum and then contour the aluminum, because that would have, oh my gosh, you would have had this it would have been completely and totally fresh. This feels like a 1.5. What you need for the 710, especially to justify that price tag, is a 2.0. That's what you need. Okay. That would have gone a long ways. Definitely. We still have flat aluminum. It's milled, but there's not really anything here that's like ultra special. Ergonomically, it's great. The 710 has always had really great ergonomics. I've always felt really, locked in and ready to go. I wish they had put some jimping up here, but they didn't. This is a recurve. I don't particularly like recurves. It's just the aesthetic of this blade. It's just part of the 710 legacy, so I just accept it. We do have Benchmade's toothy edge, which it really does bite into material really well. It's not like the edge geometry on this isn't anything spectacular. It's a very long drop point blade. Got McHenry & Williams, M390. I know many of you want to point out on the website, it says their HRC range is 58 to 61. Ew! So here's what I've learned from people like Transparent Knives and others who regularly test blades. That range is to help accommodate for coated blades and the fact that sometimes it's just slightly lower than normal. Typically, if you were to test a whole bunch of these, the uncoated M390 versions will probably mostly test at 60 to 61, while your coated blades will probably mostly test at 59 to 58, probably. That's why that range is so wide. Okay, I still don't think that it should ever be lower than 60. I think even your coated blades, because they do have a version of this that is coated, Cerakote, PVD, whatever, right? It does technically bring the range down by a point. I think that those should be 60 at the minimum, but at the bottom end, and then your uncoated ones, you get them up there to 61, 62, bang, that's where it should be. Why did I just say bang? I'm not trying to steal Neve's thing. It felt appropriate there. Sorry. You tell Jared I accidentally said bang in one of my videos. I don't know why I said that. I'm not trying to steal his thing. Anyways, but yeah, that's what I think about that. The blade looks good. It's got the same tumbled finish that it had on it 15 years ago. It's got the Benchmade logo and then all this other stuff, McHenry & Williams, right? M390, etc. It looks good. It really does. I can't complain too much outside of the billboarding just being a little bit large. Lanyard hole, we have tip up, tip down. I'm sorry, no, we don't have tip up, tip down. We have tip up, left or right-handed carry, and 2 standoffs back here. You guys really should have at least done a backspacer. Just standoffs, like, again, this is kind of that, it feels like a 1.5. Honestly, it feels like a 1.25. It should be a 2.0. Give us a backspacer. Do something special here. Don't mind the clip. I think that's cool. We did something fun here, right? Anything else there that I really want to touch on? There's no blade play up, down, left to right. There's no lock stick. That's nice for a Benchmade. No pivot lash. Very smooth and consistent in here. The D10's good enough considering it is the crossbar lock. How much is it? It's $450. Does that make any sense? No, not at all. Not in our universe anyway. Not at all. What would I personally pay for this knife? About $300. Where am I getting that? Well, let's look at their realistic direct competition, right? If you're going to give me an example of a knife that's made in China, I'm going to stonewall you right there. Is that the right expression? I'm going to build a wall against that type of comparison because those knives are made in China and they cost insanely less to create. You might be angry at Benchmade's pricing. They're still made in the United States and they still cost an enormous amount of money. If you think Benchmade can make this for $50 and sell it for $100, you are delusional. That is wrong. That is guessing and you don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry if that makes you feel bad. It's wrong. Okay. I'm not even going to hear it. Don't give me an example like that. Let's be realistic here. Let's be fair. Okay. I would pay $300 for this, and I'll tell you why. It's because their direct, realistic competition are companies like Microtech, ProTech, Hogue. Hogue does a much better job competing, right? Hogue also periodically makes bug-out-esque full titanium knives for the mid $300 range, right? Maybe at most $400. And Hogue doesn't make these things any different than Benchmade. It's not like Benchmade has some secret room where they gather around a table and perform some weird wizard spell that is like very, costly. It's the same type of, same with Microtech, right? It's mostly, almost everything's like 90% or 95% of this knife is made in-house. They might outsource a couple little things, but mostly made in-house, right? A lot of Microtechs and look at the stitch, like the aluminum stitch. In my opinion, I don't care what you think about the aesthetic, that's subjective, but as far as what it costs to create this stitch, what do they charge for that? $300? That sucker's contoured. It has its own proprietary locking system. It has a wacky blade. Their M390 MK, they've even brought the heat treat up on, right? In every way, that is more impressive in terms of manufacturing complexity and is still made essentially the same percentage in-house. What do they charge for it? $300, right? They've got the amphibian too. Hogue has some similar stuff that they charge less for. ProTech has a ton of similar stuff they charge way less for, right? So Benchmade says no, $450. If they were to ask me what would it take to get you to spend $450 on this, as somebody who got this knife for free, right? I'm aware of that. I got this for free. Okay, I get to keep this. But if I had to pay for it, what would it take? Number one, not aluminum. You want $450 from me? It needs to be titanium. Okay, and you need to. It needs to be like pretty solid. In my opinion, it should be contoured and milled titanium. Let's say you could make an argument because that's really expensive. A lot of people could say, "Well, I don't want titanium." And it's about okay, then fine. Then make two different versions. Make an aluminum one and make a titanium one. The aluminum one, number one, should be contoured. You should have cartridge liners in this thing. Should be contoured cartridge liners, and then keep the fun texturing and all of that. You should have a backspacer, and it should be spiced up. Then, $300. The equivalent of what Microtech does, right? $300, maybe $325. Sure, okay. Then you have a $450 to $500 version. I'll let them bump up a bit because titanium is expensive. Machining and contouring, texturing titanium, it's all pretty expensive. At that point, yes, contoured, textured titanium, right? And you need the backspacer and all of that. That needs to be a complete super duper special package. Do I think they can do that? Yes, I do think that they can, right? For example, I think Hinderer overcharges and has overcharged for their titanium scales for a long time. I think they have plenty of room to make an XM18 3.5 inch and charge about $525 for it, I think, something right around there. They charge $600 and people like me will pay it, so okay, right? Benchmade, their stuff does not cost nearly as much to make as Hinderer's stuff. Hinderer's stuff definitely has additional processes and is more costly to make. So do I think they could do it and charge $450 to $500? I think absolutely they can. It wasn't that long ago that they were making the Anthem, which was an integral titanium model with a proprietary coil spring operated locking axis lock, and they were charging what, $400 for that thing? Yeah, it's a long time ago, but come on, right? Yeah, that's what I'd want. That's what I think, And let's say Benchmade goes, all right, we'll make a titanium one. You know what they would charge for it? $650 minimum. $650 minimum. They're going to charge at least $200 more. I'm not going to get what I want, whether you agree or disagree with what I think here. We're not going to get what we want, right? But that's what I honestly think. As a reviewer, right? I get commissions if you guys buy this. I get to keep this for free. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you that you should buy it. It doesn't mean that I'm going to accept the price tag, right? That's what I think. I love this knife. It's going to stay in my collection. I'm really happy that Benchmade sent me one that I could talk about and give my honest thoughts. I do not think that you should buy this knife. I think that there are so many other knives out there that are a better buy at $450. I mean, nobody needs a $450 pocket knife, but if I was going to spend $450 on a knife, this would be nowhere near my top 50. It's not even close. Do I even have? I don't know if I even have 50 reviews. If I did, it wouldn't be in the top 50. So, super nice, fun knife, would be great at $300, is kind of a joke at $450. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.